All right. Hey, good morning, everybody. I hope you're doing amazing. It is Monday morning, June something 23rd. All right. Hey, listen, one of the key skills, one of the most valuable skills any professional salesperson could ever learn, anybody in the transference of enthusiasm business is, oh, hang on. Okay, we'll stop that. Is this idea of deep listening, right? One of the things that happens when we have a conversation, rather than saying things like, hey, you ready to join, is to listen to some of the ideas, right? That somebody is having, walk them through them, be able to listen to the conversation and bring out points that are key throughout the conversation to remind the client, because a lot of times they're going to give you the exact reason why they want to buy. We confuse it a lot of times as an objection. So that's the key as you start to listen to the conversation, is this idea of why deep listening matters. So, what's the psychology behind it? We always say, well, I want to learn how to listen to my customer, listen to my client. There's a lot going on in listening. You're literally doing it with your senses, not just your auditory, right? If 7% of the words, if the vocabulary makes up 7% of the presentation, that means you're only hearing 7% of the customer's concerns, right? Every prospect is scanning from their brain. Do I feel safe here? Do I trust this person? Do you know if you smile during your presentation? Do you have this look of fear on your face? When a salesperson listens with patience and presence, one of the things you're going to hear a lot of focus coming, or a lot of dialogue coming from me, is always about the signal. The signal is that thing that is the vibration that's underneath. What Wallace D. Waddle says, it's not about doing certain things, it's about doing things in a certain way. It's not about acting a certain signal, presenting yourself as a certain way. It's about the core competency with which you operate from the inside, right? So a salesperson listens, they listen with patience, they listen with presence. You're not being rushed. You're allowed to be honest. You won't be shamed for your hesitation. These are the signals that you're putting across. A lot of times in network marketing, a lot of times in certain sales environments, I've heard people say things like, so you don't wear the pants in the family, when guys are talking to guys. Again, old school stuff, but yet still some people wind up saying that today. They have these kinds of conversations. Buyers subconsciously reflect the emotional tone of the salesperson, right? If we're pushy, they become guarded. If we're regulated and present, they soften and open. So one of the most important tools that I could share with you is understanding how your nervous system sets the tone. Now, you may not have been taught that in Sales Training 101. I don't know that many sales trainers in 101 understand the nervous system. Your nervous system sets the tone. You can't hold space for somebody else if you're not grounded in your own. A lot of times we've said, well, I got to practice so that I got to practice so I can get good at it. I need to practice more so I can get good at it. Most people never practice enough so they get good at something. They wing it. I'm good. I'll wing it. I was taught in the world of professional speaking, be a puppet, never let them see the strings. Know it so well. And then I learned this phrase: be so good, you can't fail. Most people want to practice to a level of good. What if your new philosophy was to practice so it was impossible to fail? That's the philosophy that I was raised on. So when you go to get ready for a presentation, have you checked your nervous system? And I don't care what the presentation is. Seriously. It doesn't matter what presentation you're going to go do, whether you're going into the grocery store to buy something or you're going to sell $1 million contract. You are about to engage with people. And one of the things that I can offer you is the reality of your experience. And if you're in this world, meaning the world of sales, the rules always exist. And what I mean by that is the law of attraction is always in play. And if your goal is to be a world-class professional transfer of enthusiasm, aka salesperson, you are in the world of selling all the time. So to teach deep listening, my dad used to have us sit back to back. Normally in a sales call, you're face to face. He would have us sit back to back in our live mock demos. And so you'd be looking off into one part of the room, and the customer, the AKA customer, one of the other salespeople, would be sitting facing the other way, and you wouldn't be able to see each other. Kind of like a phone call. Yet there's a lot of other things environmentally that you can pick up in the room that's going on, other distractions or attractions. So when you have a conversation with somebody, let me ask you this. Maybe the next interview that you do, the next presentation that you do, the next conversation that you have, maybe you recently just had one, right? Maybe you had one over the weekend. Maybe you had a sales interaction on Friday. If I were to ask you to role play or to replay that conversation in your head, how many times did you check in to find out what they were where they were at emotionally versus verbally? Have you ever had somebody say something and you knew they were not in coherence, they were not in alignment with what they said, and the emotional part of them was in total misalignment with the words coming out of their mouth? That's that phrase you hear me say all the time. Who you are speaks louder than the words that I'm hearing coming out of your mouth, right? So imagine if you were to have a coach there, a mentor there, somebody sitting there, and every 30 seconds you were asking, or you were asked to, what did they just say emotionally, not verbally? What was the real question behind that statement? See, one of the things when I take notes and I listen to instructors and speakers and trainers and mentors, I don't take the note of what they said. I ask the question that made what they said valuable. So if somebody says, I don't know, it's kind of like asking a comedian to say something funny. Nutrition is important. Making sure you take the proper nutrition in the morning versus in the evening is a fact, right? There's certain nutritionals that you should take in the morning. Anything that gives you energy is probably wise to take it in the morning versus taking it late in the evening. So a question I might have, the question that would arise for me would be, has your nutritionals ever has the desire or the nutritionals that you take, have they ever kept you from performing at your peak? Yeah, I tried the one stuff and I couldn't sleep at night. Rather than giving people information, can you offer them the questions about the information that already exists to get them to actually hear their own response. So what's the real question behind the statement? I was taught a long time ago that anytime you say something, anytime you're giving any kind of facts or information, whether it's written or spoken, to ask the question, so what, at the end of every statement. Our company's been around for 20 years. So what? So wouldn't it make sense if that's a fact? The question, what would be the question a customer might have, a prospect might have? How do I know your company's stable? You know, one of the questions I get asked all the time is, how do I know your company is stable? Well, stability happens, as they talk about in most new startups, 80% fail in the first 2 years, and another 80% that's left fail in the next 3 years. So it's a significant hurdle to get over in 5 years. You probably are aware of that. Yes, we're a 20-year-old company. So when people ask me about stability, listen, none of us know what's going to happen tomorrow in a volatile industry. I can tell you, though, there's a good chance we've got some stability versus a startup. That's a little bit more powerful than, we're a 20-year-old company. So what? 20-year-old companies close all the time. 20-year-old companies might be more susceptible. So are you raising more questions versus bringing them into a state of presence so that they can make an informed decision? Because if they start to run off in their own mind, they are informed. They're just not informed with anything you're talking about. I don't know why they didn't get it, because they didn't hear the information. And they didn't hear the information because they were telling an old story. They were telling themselves a story. They had come up with a reason of not to buy long before you ever started selling. Right? How many of you use the echo conversation? What I hear you saying is, and repeat back to them what you heard. Chris Voss talks about in negotiations repeating the last 2 words of a statement, of anything they said. I like square bottles. Right? This is a square bottle. I like square bottles. Square bottles? And when you hear it being trained, most people are like, well, they're just going to hear me repeating it back. They're going to get mad. They're going to get aggravated. No, because when they're in that state of mind, they hear it as being heard. And when you're heard, whether you're for something or against something, you're going to defend it. Does that make sense? So you could repeat that back in any conversation. It doesn't have to be a sales presentation. You can repeat it back to somebody you're having a conversation with at lunch. At lunch? Yeah, you know, when you're talking to somebody, and you'll be amazed at how fast your brain follows right along with the conversation. If somebody does that to you, or you do to somebody else. So it's the last word or 2 that they just said, rephrased in a tone, right? The reason that most people get, oh, they're just going to know that, they're going to get mad, because you're looking at the words. Words are 7% of the interaction. Interaction? When you engage with somebody, when you hear it said in the proper tone, and you present it well, as a simple question, maybe a little head tilt, confusion, their brain sees that as, okay, you heard me. I wasn't clear enough. I need to defend this. Let me tell you more. And they will go down their rabbit hole and tell you more and more and more. This forces clarity, and it creates trust. So now some of the other conversations would be this idea of reflective questioning. Now, you've heard all of this. I can promise you, if you've heard it all, it's not new. The question is are you using all of it? So instead of jumping into a sales pitch or jumping into teach or to how to find their weak spot and take advantage of it, you might say words like, can I reflect something back to you? When you said that, what did it feel like inside? What would solving that actually mean to you? Right? Who's going to be most jealous of your success? When that happens, what's your new story? These are reflective questions. We're so busy trying to get our point across, we don't even hear half of the times those moments where we can provide feedback, feed forward to help them move through the process. I think I hear what you're saying. Tell me more about that, right? Let me ask you this. In business, they have an acronym, KPI. Right? Are you familiar with KPIs? KPI stands for key performance indicators. Let me ask you this. If you did any sales training, any sales presentations last week, any conversations, I know in network marketing, we're told all the time, this isn't sales. This is just, it's a transference of enthusiasm. It's showing people, offering people options. It's sales. Let's, for the sake of argument, let's, for the sake of the conversation of this morning call, you're in sales. Now, you may be challenged at sales. You may be awesome at sales. You may suck at sales. Let's just be very clear. You had opportunities last week to do sales presentations, whether it's a phone call to a customer, to a client, a follow-up. A follow-up is as important as a sales call. Here's my question for you. Here's the KPI I want you to start to track, the key performance indicator. And it'll shift. And when you start to track this particular KPI, if you track this particular one, it could change everything about your income, about your success, and about how fast your business will explode. Because once you learn it, you can then teach it. Here's the KPI. Here's the one thing you want to track. How many times did your prospect, your customer, say, that's a great question? How many times last week did your clients, your customers, your prospects respond back to you with, that's a great question? Because if they did, it's a signal of deep listening. It's not about the close, it's about the connection that made it possible. Does that make sense? That's the key. That's what you want to get to. You want your customer, you want your prospect, you want that person sitting in front of you to know that they've been heard, to ask a question that they wish somebody would ask them. Do you think if the interaction happens and somebody said, and a prospect says to you, that's a great question, do you think that's a horrible question? Do you think that's a negative question? Do you think that's a question that makes them not want to do business with you? If those words fall out of their cake hole, that's a great question. Do you think you've just lost the sale? Let me ask you this. How many sales have you not converted and still heard that question? You still heard that statement. They said, man, that's a great question. I don't want to do business with you. Was the outcome? So if you really want to understand professional sales, if you truly want to understand how to expand your income and how to do that this week, your goal is to have a dialogue in such a way that requires the customer to repeat back to you or to say to you or to confirm to you, that's a great question. So there's some how to listen deeply conversations, questions, comments, thoughts, takeaways. Their cake hole is their mouth. So,
Hey, good morning, Sean.
good morning,
Yes,
Silke.
I know what the cake call
Oh,
is. It was just funny. I have not heard anyone say this in ages, probably. And you said to repeat the last two words. So there I was.
and see how I without
And you responded. And you responded.
yep, and that's how it works. That's how the brain wants to go look for the answer. And more importantly, this is key in understanding psychology. If somebody knows the answer, and imagine you asked that, you knew it, right? You knew what it was,
Yes,
right? You knew what I knew what it was because I said it. You
right.
still said it, and the brain wants to prove it knows the answer to your question.
Yes, and you immediately answered it.
Yep. And that happens in live conversation. Even we're in the middle of teaching it, and it still works.
Yeah, and that's very true because I've tried it out since you taught it to me a few months back, remember?
Yep.
And it works really well. Yes. So I did want to share that it does work really well. So
I
if
love it.
people are not using it, they should use it.
They should, and it's almost impossible to if that's used with honor, respect, right? The signal that it's sent in, it it forces the conversation to continue. To continue, yeah, to keep going, right? It's just
Uh,
there's something that happens in the brain that in the middle of teaching it, it's being used, and you can't avoid it. It's so awesome. That's why you have to promise to use it for good.
yes, and I mean it's also good if you typing because you're only typing literally two words
Yeah.
instead of having to type an entire question, and it works so well. So it's pretty cool.
Yep. I love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. That's powerful.
Thank you. Love you.
Love you too. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Hello, Molly. 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 Molly is getting so big. For those of you that have been to the ranch, she almost has to duck going through my doggy door here in the office. It's amazing. She's just almost as tall as my office chair. Good morning, AJ.
Hey, good morning, brother. How are you?
Outstanding.
That's awesome. This is really good, man, because it's so funny to me that you're speaking about this today.
Ha. Woohoo.
And yesterday I had a conversation with this guy. So this guy, he is 16 and he's filling up for the weekend rush hour at the lake, right? So yesterday, rush hour kind of dissipates around 5 or 6 o'clock. And he comes over to my table and he's like, "Hey, listen, man, I see you here every day. I see you with the fancy computer because, by the way, having a MacBook in Serbia is considered very classy." He said, "I see you with a nice car. I see you with money and everything. And I just want to ask, what do you do?" And I told him that I sell pizzas online. And he didn't buy it, and eventually ended up telling him. And he's like, "Well, can you teach me something?" And I said, before we talk about any trading stuff or crypto stuff or whatever, what you might want to do is you might want to focus on the game. And he said, "What?" And I said, you might want to focus on the game, learning how to play the game. And the game is people. And he said, what do you mean? And I said, well, not to manipulate people, but simply to understand how to walk, how to talk, how to dress, how to address somebody, and so on. And he said, what do you mean? And I said, well, did you notice when I come up in here, the place just lights up and everybody's happy to see me? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, why do you think that is? Not because I'm a regular customer. There's hundreds of regular customers in here, but nobody gets exactly the treatment like I do. And that's not because I'm a partner or because this and that. It's simply because I walk in the room and I have a thing with everybody. I have a thing with the Igor, we call him Iggy. Iggy is like a 50-year-old dude who's a barista. I got a thing with him. So we joke about his back and so on and so forth. I got a thing with the female owner. I got a thing with the male owner. I got a thing with a girl who's a waitress, and she's also filling up for the weekend rush hour, and the other girl who's also filling up as a barista. So I got a thing going on with everybody. I acknowledge everybody when I walk in the room. I say hi to everybody individually, ask them how they're doing, and so on and so forth. So all of these things, how you dress, how you walk, how you talk, how you present yourself, how you carry yourself through the world, that's the game. And I said, I have one person to thank for that. And another thing you might want to consider is having a mentor, because I know I do. So I told him, first things first, before you want to do anything, before you want to go out there in the world and you want to do whatever you want to do, because you can make money in pretty much anything. Specifically, he goes to culinary school and they have this section for being a waiter. So in Serbia, you have a regular type of high school. We call it gymnasia, like uh, just normal high school.
Right.
And then you have high schools that are niche based. And I graduated from a high school that's specifically for computer science. This guy's actually going to a high school to be a waiter. And I told him I know waiters that make thousands of bucks per month simply because they work in the right place and they know the right people. And by the way, there's probably not a better job, maybe apart from sales, where you can learn the game better versus being in the hospitality business. And he was like, "Oh, okay." I could clearly see that he probably didn't understand half of what I was talking about, but he was very intrigued. He was interested. And then this morning when I went there for breakfast, he was in there. He was like, I thought about what you said, and that's just crazy, man. And it makes a lot of sense. And I said, well, you go and practice that and come back to me and I'll talk to you. And he was like, okay. And then you talk about this today. So I was like, okay, this is great. So thank you, by the way, for teaching me how to play the game. So I can go out there and teach other young men how to play
Well,
the game. Yeah.
the key to playing the game is to know the rules. That's it. Every one of us is playing a game. We're playing the game based upon the rules we understand. I can kick a soccer ball around or a football around, and because I can kick it doesn't make me a soccer player, but I can say I play soccer. I play football. Yeah, but you don't really, the rules are you have to be able to handle the ball, dribble the ball, you have to be able to pass, block it, hit, headbutt, all of that stuff. Oh, well, that's not the rules I play soccer by. I play football by. I have rules when I go out to dinner. And I know how to play the rules to get a good seat, to get a good service, to get stuff that's not on the menu. I know the rules of how to play that, not because I've owned a restaurant. That doesn't hurt, but I know the rules because I play by a different set of rules. You have a different set of rules when you walk in. You have rules to have a thing with people, to have a connection with people. Everybody else has those rules available to them as well. Everybody has a name. They can, hey, listen, I'm Igor Greginski. What's your name? They can exchange names. There's rules that say you can create a connection. Most of you don't play by the connection rule. Most. Some of you do. Then the question is we talk about rapport. I don't want to have a deep rapport because I can have a deep rapport that embarrasses you. I want to have an old rapport that allows us to be more alike than different. In this part of the world, my rapport is that I'm from Dallas. I've lived here 2 years. Oh, you're an outsider. I grew up on a farm selling corn. Oh my God, that's 55 years ago. And if somebody is 40 and I'm 55 years ago selling corn and they sold corn when they were 35 years ago, we have a 35-year-old rapport. That's a rule I play by. How old can I connect with you? Doesn't matter what I'm doing today. You'll never hear what I'm doing today or tomorrow if you don't have a connection to me some point in the past that says you're more like me than different. You have all of the cars. Thing I would ask this kid is, did he ever play sports? If he's played sports, you now have a connection. Maybe he played football, maybe he played something, but if he played any kind of sport, any kind of organized sport, you can have a conversation with him. You know, when I played American football, which was kind of crazy. I don't know if it's still big American football, kids are still playing it there or not. But you can say I was one of the first schools to play American football. I know, listen, sports is tough. I'm glad you're in sports. I'm glad you understand organization. So the question is who's your team? Are you the captain of the team or are you the water boy on the team? You're still on the team, right? The guy that tapes the ankles still gets the ring when they win the championship versus the guy that made the winning shot. Why doesn't he get 3 rings and we all get the same ring because we're on the same team? Yeah, Petrov and his sister, right? What team are they on? What's the name of their team? The restaurant's called Love or Heart. That's the team Heart. So what is the team's play today? Who are they going up against? What's the competition? The competition today, right? Monday is that it's a slow day. How do we compete against Monday, everybody going back and having to get back into the mindset? What's the competition? What is your competition when you have a slow business day? It's not that you have a slow business day. Something is competing mentally for them to not come to the restaurant. How do you find space and time in their brain, in all of your customers and all of your prospects' brain? How do you find time and space for them to say, I need to go spend time with AJ. I need to go spend time with Silka, with Diane, with Wheezy. How do you take up brain space? That is your competition. And if your competition is them worrying about here, oh my God, we're at the 23rd? We're at the 23rd of the month. The end of the month is coming in. My sales are down. That's who you're competing with, why they won't come to the restaurant. How do you compete against that? You make it a networking. Maybe you host networking events Monday for lunch, business networking events. They pay $5 a month to come and they get coffee and a Danish for lunch, and it's a business networking event. I don't know. That's how my brain works. And who is my competition? What am I competing against so I can take up brain space in somebody? Right? The whole idea of getting them to brag. The only reason they do business with you is so they can brag. A bad experience, they'll brag a lot longer. A good experience, it'll sound like they're bragging. You have to give them a reason to brag. You don't have to give them a reason to brag negatively. You have to give them a reason to brag positively, which now puts them in a public speaking leadership role that most people don't know about. So they never brag about anything that's a positive because it's too hard to fight the stream. So how do you, what is your competition? It's not the restaurant down the street. Wallace D. Waddle says it ain't about doing certain things, it's about doing them in a certain way. This is the signal. The signal. People would come into the restaurant, our restaurant, Murphy's Steakhouse and Pub, and they would ask for my dad. And if dad wasn't there, they'd ask for me. And if neither one of us were there, sometimes people would just leave. They wanted to brag. And if they were going to make a reservation, they would make a reservation. I need a table for 8 And can you let Sean or Mike know we're going to be there? Can you make sure one of them is there? And we showed up sometimes based upon the reservation simply to go allow a customer to brag. Here's the owner. You know that. That's how it is when you're in your restaurant. We all have that experience. If we know the owner of the restaurant and they say, hey, how are you? It's good to see you, or the favorite barista or something. It's the Cheers model, right? The TV show. Everybody wants to go where everybody knows their name. Now, the thing I teach CEOs and CMOs, the things I teach this C-suite, the executive team on network marketing companies, is all too often network marketing companies are started by somebody who needed to fill a need of their own or their team, right? There's a whole handful of people from Modere. Modere closed its doors a month ago, and they've launched a new company, and they've done over $1 million in sales in the first 24 hours. They needed to launch it, one, for their own survival, two, for their community, because they said they were going to be leaders. None of them anticipated starting their own company. Very few people want to ever start their own company. They talk about it. The key now is to not dilute yourself. When I deal with CEOs, the first thing I'll always ask them is how many people have your number? I say all of the top leaders. Awesome. How often do they get to call you? Anytime. I said, so you're no different than the chief marketing officer. Because now the company can't run, because when the chief marketing officer, the CMO, or the salesperson wants to go implement something, everything has to go through you. So you are now the bottleneck. They can have access to you. The key is that they shouldn't have access to your ability for decision making. You're the one in charge. You need to build your team stronger. So my whole point is that these owners, the brother and sister, everybody loves them. Is there the only way that they really get access to them? Everybody can know them. I want everybody to know me. The way you get access to me is, are you on my wall? My metaphorical wall of fame. So I'll ask you the question, AJ. Have they put up the wall of fame? Well, they're still talking about it. No, they really haven't done it. Or yes, they have. It's this very simple answer. Either they have or they haven't. If they haven't, somebody's delaying their own success. They are shooting themselves in the foot by not putting that. Well, nobody does that. You're right. I'm rich. Let's move on. So that's my thoughts. Questions, comments, thoughts, takeaways. Anyone else before we wrap it up? Okay. I hope today, Monday, brings you great success. Ask yourself this. If you were going to engage with anybody, your spouse, could you imagine how tuned in you'd have to be for somebody who is wildly significant in your world to say, that's a great question? Without it, especially as close as you are, for somebody to say that's a great question, because if you ask them a big, tough question that seems like, oh, you're not listening, and it pisses them off, that's probably not wow, that's a great question. You can say that's a great question. You can get that's a great question, but the opposite. Oh man, I'm going to ask a great question. That serves you or serves them? Because if it serves you, there's probably going to be a fight right after that, right after that question, right? So that would be my suggestion to you. How can you pay attention with such emotion, such desire, and such clarity that your vibration, your DMP, your signal is so loud and so clear that somebody says, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. the closer the relationship, the more challenging it is to get to that. Because sometimes there's a phrase in English that says, well, sometimes you just got to eat crow. Well, I've never eaten crow, so I imagine it's probably not a good taste. But we have to eat our own words, and we have to swallow our own pride. There's no reason to swallow pride if you're being somebody of honor and respect to somebody you love and care for. Well, that makes me look like I'm wrong. It makes you look like you're connected. That's my thoughts. So there you go. I love you tons. I hope you have an incredible Monday of deep listening. And see if you get the question, see if you get the comment back. That's a great question. And then pay attention to the answer. I'm your head brain training. Ask better questions, Misfit. I'll see you all where?
At the next event.
At the next event. Somebody give me some Costa Ricas.
Pura vida.
Pura vida.
We love you, Mark. And some Lydias.
Peace be with
Peace
us.
be with
us all. And the queen of helping you find better solutions through better questions, Jessie Lee Ward.
Boss.
Boss Lee.
We love you, girl. And little white fluffy.
Gurgly, gurgly, gurgly.
Gurgly. Love you tons. And yes, Weezy, let me know when. I'm in the office this morning. Love you tons. Thanks, everybody. Bye for now. See.
Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Thank you.